we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jet airliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Biden deserted you. He's not from Pennsylvania. I guess he was born here, but he left you, folks. He left you for another state, and he didn't take care of you because he didn't take care of your jobs.
If the American people want a president to add to our division, lead with a clenched fist, a closed hand, a hard heart, to demonize your opponent, to spew hatred, they don't need me. They've got President Donald Trump.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
All right, glad you're with us. Hour 2, Sean Hannity Show, 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. A lot is happening on the deep state. Now, the biggest story that to break when I was headed for the weekend was, of course, the declassification, the order by the president to declassify these documents that we keep telling you about, the Gang of Eight information, the FISA applications, the 302s, the exculpatory evidence that we talked about at length last week, which is that they withheld specifically as it relates to the whole Russia-Mueller investigation, which would have knocked it dead, and many of the things that are coming. Now, we have the Inspector General doing his investigation, and that's on FISA abuse. Then, of course, we have John Huber on leaking, and there's a lot of problems for a lot of these deep state actors that we talk about as it relates to leaking. Then, of course, we have this new guy that was brought in, Mr. Durham, and apparently he's been trying to get Christopher Steele, the spy that lied in the Russian dossier that everybody was warned about and used anyway, especially on the FISA applications. Anyway, what's been breaking now is that Christopher Steele refuses to cooperate with the U.S. attorney, now looking into all of this at the request of the Attorney General Barr, who said he's investigating every aspect of this. And the narrative, the story that we have been slowly been revealing to you for 2 years, now we're getting all of the evidence. In other words, the curtain on Mueller has closed. It's over. The Attorney General has definitively said he is done. It's not happening. There was no collusion. We have 4 separate reports, the FBI investigation, the House Intel investigation, bipartisan Senate committee, and now the Mueller report. None whatsoever. And by the way, no obstruction. And it's amazing. I can't wait to see what the media mob does. There's only been one previous time when they have come out and they have said that's not true. And that related to an issue with the president, which, by the way, they could have done a long time ago, which is why I don't think Mueller will ever testify. Mueller does not want to sit there and get grilled. When did he know there was no collusion? If he's investigating taxi medallions, loan applications, and taxes because his mandate was so broad, why did he not look into the fake dossier, what the New York Times is now suggesting was Russian disinformation bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton? And when Michael Wolff writes this big bestseller, Fire and Fury, by the way, he lied about me in that book. I confronted him about that. He didn't have anything to say about it. But Siege, Trump Under Fire, well, claims that Robert Mueller drew up an obstruction of justice indictment. Now, the media has been kissing this guy's ass, helped him sell a lot of copies of this phony book the first time. And I know because I was lied about it. And he claims Donald Trump doesn't like Sean Hannity. Okay, even if he doesn't, it wouldn't matter, but it's not true. And so claiming that Mueller drew up an obstruction of justice indictment against the president, but Robert Mueller's spokesperson, the special counsel's spokespeople, only for the second time, which shows how profound this is, said the claim in Wolf's book is wildly inaccurate. Wow. He lied in the first book, and he lying in the second book. I was lied about in the first book. I know firsthand. And when I am, of course, I didn't want to hear it. So now we have the dossier author. Remember, not verified, unverifiable. You have Kathleen Kavlik warning the FBI upper echelon. Bruce Orr, August 2016, warning upper echelon. Exculpatory information withheld purposely. The person that paid for it, well, they lied to the FISA court by omission in that case. And Christopher Steele, in an interrogatory, denies his own dossier. I have no idea if any of it's true. So now Steele refusing to cooperate with the U.S. Attorney John Durham. Now what's getting very interesting is to watch Clapper and Brennan freaking out. They're now sources and methods, and they're going to nobody's going to expose sources and methods. Nobody's going to put anybody's life in jeopardy. The exact opposite of their position prior. Anyway, here to help break down what this all means, Greg Jarrett. He wrote the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton, frame Donald Trump. David Schoen, criminal defense and civil liberties attorney. Greg, let's start with the declassification. Let's start with John Durham and Christopher Steele. And let's start with literally the special counsel's office, only for the second time that I recall.
Right.
Saying about a rumor not true.
Well, almost nothing that Michael Wolff writes and reports is reliable. I mean, he himself has admitted he's not a journalist and he's not in the business of telling the truth. So
what did he say in the beginning of his new book? Remember, he's made the comment, something to the effect, some of this might not be true. And then the media went nuts.
He's a fiction writer.
Yes.
And it should be sold under the category of pure fiction, detective novel type stuff. So why anybody would ever buy Michael Wolff's book is really beyond me. But I will say this about Christopher Steele and his refusal to cooperate. If I were his lawyer, that's the advice I would give him, because he lied to the FBI and he got fired for lying to the FBI. Now that's a crime. It doesn't matter if you're a citizen of Great Britain or not. You've committed a crime against the government of the United States. He's in legal jeopardy. We could and should seek his extradition. Now, the Brits probably wouldn't do it, but you might be able to strike a deal.
Wait a minute. Why would the Brits maybe give Assange over? Now, it's interesting to watch on the media side. If Assange was not involved in the stealing,
right,
and we have the Pentagon Papers case, which if you're not involved in either a conspiracy, have any knowledge of where the information comes from, you still, a 6-3 real famous landmark decision.
Sure.
You're still allowed to print it.
Right.
Okay. If Assange didn't conspire to do this, would that be dangerous? Now, even the New York Times is worried about that.
Well, there's two separate things here. First of all, the Trump-Russia case,
right.
The hacking of emails of the DNC and other Clinton campaign people. That's completely separate from the charges he's facing, which is helping Chelsea Manning break a passcode to access national security information that has nothing whatsoever to do with Trump-Russia investigation or the Clinton campaign.
Separate matter.
Completely separate matter. Now, the law does not protect you, even if you're a journalist, if you help steal information. It's theft. It's jeopardizing national security. If Assange did that, he should be prosecuted. If he's simply the recipient of information, he's protected.
It's interesting, though, to watch, David, and I know this is an area of law that you really care about, to see these editors scared to death because they want to publish all their anonymous sources like they've been lying to us and selling conspiracy theories for the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. The whole information game here is very interesting. Look, think about in the broader picture all of these members of Congress screaming and kicking for the full revelation of the Mueller report, as if they hadn't seen enough yet, even though, we know by law parts of it must remain confidential, but now how badly they're scrambling over the declassification issue. They don't want this stuff to come out, and this is the very stuff that has to come out. Listen, Michael Horowitz has an opportunity here with his Inspector General report to make a landmark statement in American jurisprudence, it seems to me. If he really is hard-hitting and exposes the withholding of the exculpatory evidence, the financial motivation behind what started all of this, and that this was a central part of our Justice Department in an effort to get Donald Trump, this will be a statement that will ring forever, I think, in history. And thanks to you, quite frankly, for pushing these issues and for continuing to expose it. Because if you and the American public lets this go, then there's not going to be a great cry for it, and they can hide it under the rug. Greg's exactly right, by the way, when he says Christopher Steele's lawyer should never let him testify. You know very well that every one of these crooks who's now caught with a hand in the cookie jar would love to make Christopher Steele the scapegoat, and that he lied to them and misled them. They didn't intentionally misuse him.
Why do I suspect Great Britain doesn't want any part of any of this? Because is it possible that Brennan Clapper and company perhaps outsourced intelligence gathering that would have violated U.S. laws to circumvent it? They got some of our allies to do their dirty work for them and just keep their hands clean. What's funny, you're talking about this. Yeah, they don't want the declassification, but they wanted a full unredacted Mueller report, even grand jury materials. Listen to how scared Brennan sounds here.
How big a deal do you read the portion of the executive order last night that appears to give Barr the unilateral authority to declassify?
Well, I see it as a very, very serious and outrageous move on the part of Mr. Trump, once again, trampling upon the statutory authorities of the Director of National Intelligence and the heads of the independent intelligence agencies. And it's unclear to me what Mr. Barr actually is going to do. Is he investigating a crime? Well, what's the predication of that crime? Or is he just going to be looking for information? I think, as you rightly pointed out at the top, that Mr. Trump can just give to some of his defenders on the right. And cherry pick information that could be taken out of context. But I think more fundamentally, the concern is that very, very precious and sensitive source and methods of the United States intelligence community, as well as our partners and allies abroad. Those who share this sensitive information with us. Is Mr. Barr, who doesn't have an understanding of the equities involved, is he just going to release information that he deems appropriate for Mr. Trump's defense? So this is very serious, and I know that my former colleagues in the intelligence agencies are looking upon this with great concern and worry.
I think David's right, Craig, because they wanted the full Mueller report, even the grand jury information. Now it's like, this is dangerous. We can't get to the real information that, well, may expose things we did.
People like Brennan.
Think about how scary a thing Mr. Brennan just said. He's relegating to the realm of just helping Donald Trump and in his defense things like withholding exculpatory evidence. This man was in charge of an intelligence agency, and he sees that as a procedural nicety, that you could go after somebody and not reveal that you had exculpatory evidence that would have exonerated that person, would have undercut your source. That's the kind of person we had in charge of an intelligence agency. Shocking.
And we just heard Brennan lie to the American people about the law. And he well knows the law. The president is the ultimate authority on declassification and classification. And
I would be the first person to say, never release sources and methods.
Right. But nobody's going to.
No, and the president wouldn't. But that's not what he's afraid of.
No, of course.
He's afraid of the content.
This is one scared man, because I do believe that he outsourced to the British government and other foreign governments the work of spying on American citizens.
Oh, but James Comey said, even though he signed the first FISA warrant to spy, that he never spied. The FBI doesn't spy. Most FBI agents are great. Let me tell you something. Rank and file FBI guys are furious. Rank and file intelligence people are furious because they would never do any of these things ever.
Because people like Comey and McCabe and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page ruin the integrity and the credibility of the FBI. It'll take a decade to recover from that.
Quick break, right back. More with Greg Jarrett and David Schoen. Listen, we've all heard these stories. You know, a home invasion, somebody defends his family, the person defending their family is thrown in jail. Now, unfortunately, with a liberal court system, this happens more than it ever should. It happens a lot, but that's where the USCCA steps in to help. Now, remember, the USCCA are dedicated to educating, training, and legally protecting responsibly armed Americans that believe in the Second Amendment to protect their homes and families. That's it. And this week only, they're giving away a free guide, audiobook, about exactly what to do if, God forbid, you're in a situation, a home invasion. It's called the Complete Concealed Carry Family Defense Guide. It's 100% free. You'll learn how do you see attackers before they see you? How do you survive, God forbid, you're in a mass shooting scenario? What's the best tactical place to be in a public area like a restaurant, and much more. 164 pages, life-saving information, complete audiobook. You'll also get their home defense checklist free. And all you have to do is take out your cell phone, text the word free to 87222, and claim this life-saving guide and checklist now and audiobook. Just take out your phone, text the word free to 87222. Text the word free, F-R-E-E, to 87222.
Hannity Watch. Keeping an eye on Chuck and Nancy and their minions. Sean Hannity.
All right, as we continue, we'll have a lot more on this on Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel. We've got our friend Jeffrey Lord talking about the deep state in a minute, and also the swamp in D.C. All right, so, Greg Jarrett, where are we going next if, in fact, when, not if, all this information comes out, and Brennan is already freaking out, Comey's freaking out, all the deep state members have turned on each other, what's next?
Grand jury is next. I think it's going to be a blockbuster report by the Inspector General, Horowitz. And just on FICE alone, I do not see how it is possible legally not to have a criminal referral by IG to William Barr, who will then make the decision, do we present this to a grand jury? And I think he must.
Is there any chance John Durham already has a grand jury convened?
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe, maybe not. But I think soon, if not already, there will be one.
Thoughts, David Schoen?
Yeah, I mean, I echo those. I hope that the IG's report will be a blockbuster. As again, it can be a landmark document. I worry whenever we're dealing with government officials if they sort of pull punches. But and remember, all of these people have long ties that go back. Michael Horowitz is an honest guy. Will he be as hard-hitting as he needs to be? I hope so. There were things in the last IG's report that were good and bad. They have to tell it like it is once and for all.
Well, I think obviously the declassification means all those 5 buckets we talk about are coming out in some form, right?
Right. I do agree. I think all of them will eventually come out. The only reservation I have about the Inspector General is he cannot force ex-employees of the FBI like Comey and McCabe to testify. That's why you need the grand jury.
It's getting fascinating. Good to see you. Greg Jarrett, David Schoen, thank you. Well,
Thank you very
by
much.
the way, James O'Keefe got a huge court ruling about the media. We'll get into that. Also, Jeff Lord and Kayleigh McEnany when we come back. A lot of news straight ahead.
You'll hear what everyone really thinks in D.C. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
And you don't lose Georgia, and you don't lose Utah. I don't think Utah's ever been. Jeffrey, has Utah ever been lost? Just keep saying what you say. You know what he says? He's like Ronald Reagan. That's all he has to say. It's good. Donald Trump is like Ronald Reagan. We love you, Jeffrey. This guy takes such abuse on CNN. Do we love him? I hope he's getting paid a lot of money because he deserves it, believe me. The audience, I didn't know he was here. Jeffrey Lord. Oh, he fights so hard. Oh, that Jeffrey.
It's so unfair. They stack up 7-1, but he handles it. CNN, they stack it up against him. They stack it. They are not happy with the results of this election, and it was a stampede.
It was a stampede. They still can't handle what happened in the election, nor can they handle, Robert Mueller didn't come down the way they wanted either, which shouldn't shock anybody. You know, one person did see this coming very, very, very early, and he did work for fake news CNN at the time. And I would write poor Jeff Lord, because we've been friends going back, from the, Reagan years, for crying out loud. And we've known each other, and I've always admired his hard work and his writing. He followed up his #1 bestseller just out today with a new book called Swamp Wars, which I have my signed copy in front of me. Donald Trump and the New American Populism versus the Old Order, which is kind of the only way to explain it. Also, Kayleigh McEnany is with us. And by the way, the two of them, you'd watch them on CNN. It was always 14-0 or 14-1 in terms of the debate situations these guys were put in. And then they still can't handle one alternative voice, so they end up having to leave in the end anyway. Jeff, the book is awesome. I couldn't put it down. And you did see Trump. When did you first publish the first book on Trump?
June. The first book was published in early 2016. I wrote it in November of 2015. I wrote my first column, Never Ignore Donald Trump, in June of 2013.
Wow.
And, of course, all sorts of people thought I had lost my mind.
Yeah, I didn't think so. You know, the funny thing is, if you really look objectively and discern, and I had an opportunity over the longer weekend and talk to some friends, I mean, Donald Trump lives in the minds of all of these rage, psychotic media mob people, and lives in the minds of every Democrat. He lives there. He literally has set up residence and owns them. They obsess about him 24/7.
It's everywhere. I mean, Kayleigh has to see this, I'm sure. They're in all of their heads, and it doesn't make any difference whether they're in Washington or on some faculty somewhere or in the legal profession, in these swamps, as I call them. He is driving them crazy.
And Kayleigh, both of you experienced this because you were over there at Fake News CNN.
That's exactly right. I mean, they're absolutely obsessed with President Trump. And what bothers them so much, I mean, let's try and diagnose their, illness or disorder with this obsession with President Trump. It's that they never saw the victory of President Trump on the horizon, number one. And number two, probably more importantly, this is a president that fights back. Past Republican presidents take the media slander, take the media libel, lying down, quietly move forward without counterpunching. But this president fights back, and it drives them crazy. So they are triggered, and they have one goal, and that is take down this president via impeachment, and certainly take him down in the next election if it comes to that.
But what really I think both of you have picked up on it, and I think our audience has certainly picked up on this over time, is that this swamp was always real. The sewer is real. The establishment Republicans are real. The media mob they are really a mob. And what's interesting is even those Republicans, remember National Review and their hostility to then candidate Donald Trump, all of a sudden he's implementing every single conservative principle that he ran on. All the things we've said for decades since Ronald Reagan, we want it again. And the success is predictable as well. And then, you watch them, they don't know what to do. They have so bought their own hatred of him. Well, how do they get back to, he did everything he said he was going to do. Those are the things we advocate for. But what do we do now? Because we've been wrong the whole time. Jeff.
Yeah, they have been wrong all the time. And, this is why they're so furious, I think, about the president giving Attorney General Barr the authority to release all these classified documents. I mean, some of these people, and you keep saying, James Comey, call your lawyer or get a lawyer. I mean, this is serious stuff for these people, very serious stuff. And for people who wanted transparency all the time, suddenly they don't want anything out there.
Right.
Or they think it's going to be used selectively. I think that there's a reason for that. I think that the rats are leaving the ship and they're pointing at each other.
Well, you can see that with the deep state as well. I mean, all of a sudden, look what happened with them. They're now turning on each other. You got Strzok and Page. They're turning on the Department of Justice, Loretta Lynch. Then you've got, James Comey's battling Clapper and Brennan at the same time. And then you've got McCabe going against everybody, and you have James Baker going against everybody. They're now turning on each other. Bruce Orr warning everybody. And as this evidence now comes out on a daily basis, you begin to see that they just thought she was going to win. They thought they rigged it, that they couldn't lose. They didn't.
That's exactly right. And they don't have Loretta Lynch to cover for them. They don't have Jim Comey to cover for them anymore. They've got Bill Barr, and Bill Barr has shown himself to be entirely interested in shining light on the misdeeds of the Obama administration and the misdeeds that have been conducted over time that we all know about, that you've documented in your show every night, that finally the New York Times picked up on and said, hey, there wasn't just one human source, there were two. But it is baffling to me the lack of mainstream media coverage on this. You've been shining a light on it, and good for you, Sean, but it's just too bad that the rest of the mainstream media completely derelicts their journalistic duty.
Well, the first chapter, actually chapter 1 in your book was fired by CNN, and both of you shared that experience, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one night we were told that we were both going to be on together. Oh, the horror of it.
Oh, you mean it wasn't going to be, let's see, Van Jones, David Axelrod. I mean, everybody hated you guys. And Jeff, do you remember I would be texting you, how do you put up with this BS? And I'm like, tell Van Jones I said. And I'm like, and if I saw a smile on your face when they got back to you, I'd like, all right, he read it. I knew you.
Yeah.
It was fun to do it.
It was complete fun, and the president did it one time when as candidate
funny.
at the time, and I looked down, and during the commercial break I looked and I saw it, and that they're ganged up on that nice Jeffrey Lord, something to that effect, and so I said to the CNN people, I said, can I mention this on the air? And they looked at me and said, don't poke the bear.
Yeah. Oh, don't. Who got the most angry at both of you? That would be an interesting behind the scenes to me.
Yeah, the so-called Republican women, and it's so interesting. Some of the folks they choose who don't at all represent the Republican Party, which 93% supports the president. Jeff and I were really the only two reflections of the Republican Party. We were the only two actually supporting the Republican nominee for president. So for me, it was the Republican women who were quite angry. It's part of the reason I asked for out of my contract. I said, I got to get out of here, man. Take me to the RNC. Take me to Trump world. I saw the writing on the wall, and Jeff, 2 weeks later, shortly after, you were gone. So we were there together.
Yeah, well, you're there, and thank God both of you have moved on to better places here. But you talk about the education of Donald Trump, and I thought that was an interesting chapter. What did you mean by that, Jeff?
Well, I think that overlooked advantages were where he was born, which is to say Queens. He came up with his background in construction, which meant that as a kid, he was out there on these construction sites talking to people all the time, the blue-collar types, as it were. And then later led this life of celebrity in Manhattan in which he got to know how the press works. And those two things have been enormous helps to him. And his psychology is tremendous. I mean, he told me his father told him that the Trumps were Queens people and don't go into Manhattan. And he says, so I was going to do it. And he says, I rented an apartment. I printed up a business card that said the Trump Organization, and I was the only one in it.
Right.
And then, he's telling me this as we're looking back at Manhattan as we ride in his car, and he points over to one of the towers next to the United Nations and says, and that one's mine.
I mean, it's, there are certain,
story.
But there are certain fundamental things we as conservatives have always believed that work. End burdensome regulation, lower taxes, get rid of job-killing policies of the environment that don't do what they say they're going to do anyway. And look at what the president's doing, incentivizing businesses to build factories, manufacturing centers. And look at, we have 1.7 million more jobs available than we have people on unemployment. which is virtually full employment. Pennsylvania, your state, Jeffrey Lord, is holding job seminars in prisons because they want these guys, when they're released, to go work for them. When does that ever happen?
Everywhere I go around here, Sean, there are for hiring signs.
Right.
You know, help wanted. They're all over the place. And that says a lot. I mean, at some point, I hope you come back in the next year or so to Pennsylvania and spend some time talking to some of these regular folks here. I mean, these are the people that knew what was going on, and I would try and explain this to CNN, and, you know, they kept telling me, the polls, the polls, the polls. Meanwhile, on the ground here, this was serious Trump country.
You know, and the thing is like, as they continue to dig down deeper after 4 separate exonerations, Kaylee, and no collusion, no conspiring to collude, no obstruction. And we have the FBI investigation, the House Intel Committee investigation, the bipartisan Senate Committee investigation, and now the Mueller report. All they're doing to me is just they are paving the streets of re-election with gold and little flower petals so Donald Trump can walk right into a second term.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was actually quite comical when you first saw the Mueller report come out, that letter by Bill Barr, the summary. CNN, they were saying this is a complete exoneration. They had nothing else to say, but at the moment, the facts in front of them. And then all of a sudden, Adam Schiff comes out and says, oh, wait, but there was still collusion in plain sight. And all of a sudden, that's now the liberal media talking point. Gone with the facts. We will just say things that are completely false, that have no bearing in truth. We'll utter the conspiracy theories right after our leader, Adam Schiff, and the Democrats. And you're right. It will backfire. The American people see through it. They are smart. They can read the Mueller report for themselves and see what is in plain sight, that there was no wrongdoing except on the part of the Obama administration, who engaged in spying.
All right, I got to thank you.
Did the president know, and when did he know it?
Oh, we're going to get into that Oval Office. Let me hold you a couple more minutes. We'll continue. Kaylee McEnany, Jeff Lord, his book is out today. It's on Amazon.com, Hannity.com, bookstores everywhere. It's called Swamp Wars, Donald Trump and the New American Populism and the Old Order. But first, listen, we all need a good night's sleep. Sleeping helps. We all want to sleep more. Probably if you're like me, you're one of these people that fights to stay awake. By the way, you fight to stay awake, right, every day? Why do we do that? You're like, why don't I just surrender and go to bed and get a good night's sleep? Well, it's easier now than ever because of MyPillow. The pillow puts me to sleep. That's how good it is. And you can only get your MyPillow at MyPillow.com. They have a toll-free number, 800-919-6090. It's been transformative in my life, falling asleep faster, staying asleep longer. And Mike Lindell of MyPillow is offering the lowest price ever that he's ever offered on TV or radio. You get a 2-pack, MyPillow Premiums, $69.98, and that's only $34.99 per pillow. By the way, guaranteed to make you sleep better. No risk to you, or you would get your money back. That's how sure they are that you will love MyPillow as well. Made in the USA, 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty. Sleep better. Right now, go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Promo code Hannity, their best price ever. 2 MyPillow premium pillows for $69.98. You will not regret this decision. You're going to love this pillow. We'll continue.
The final hour of the Sean Hannity Show is up next. Hang on for Sean's Conservative Solutions.
All right, we got to wrap things up here with my good friend Jeff Lord. His book is out today, Amazon.com and Hannity.com. It's in every bookstore around the country. It's called Swamp Wars. Donald Trump, the New American Populism versus the Old Order, guaranteed to be a bestseller. And Kaylee McEnany is with us. All right, so where do you see this going now that they've lost on 2 big fronts? Donald Trump's policies have been hugely successful, and everything they thought would happen is not only not happening, but it's boomerang back on the media and on the deep state. What's next, Jeff?
What I think is next, Sean, and you've touched on it, and Kaylee's touched on it, is not only the sort of the silent coup attempt, which we're going to uncover, but the scandal in the mainstream media and not digging into the story. You, my friend, were the one that got all these people together, and they dug and they dug and they dug, and they have unearthed some really significant things. And the fact that this was not done by the mainstream press, I think, is going to damage them a great deal, and there's another scandal there.
Okay. And what's your take on it, Kaylee? Where do you see this happening?
Yeah, where I see this going is the media trying to cover for their liberal friends in the Obama administration as we see one of the biggest scandals in modern political history be uncovered layer by layer as we see on your show. And the challenge for us here at the campaign, we got to break through the media echo chamber because they are sowing a web of lies. Doesn't matter. The truth is of no moment to them. So got to break through that media narrative.
Yeah, we definitely have to. All right. Jeff, we're real proud of you. Guaranteed big bestseller, as always, and well written, which of course is an art that I don't have any talent with. So I've tried it 3 times and it's too hard for me.
Thank you, my friend, and I have all 3 of them.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Jeff Lord and Kaylee McEnany, thank you both for being with us. 800-941-SEAN. More investigative reporting. We got James O'Keefe at the top of the hour. He's actually winning again. That's going to drive the media mob nuts. That's next, straight ahead as we continue.
Baseball today. It's the American way. Of course, the next best thing to a seat in the stands is a seat in front of a 19-inch RCA Victor television. One more day to Labor Day weekend, the traditional occasion for tasty outdoor barbecues or picnics.
agree with all the obstacles and with all the enemies who are between
This is Times Square, 42nd